Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. It's 11 a.m. Pacific. I believe it's 3 p.m. Brazil, 2 p.m. in Ottawa. I'm going to give a couple of more minutes for folks to join us, and then we'll officially start. So I think we'll go ahead now and get started, and attendees can join us as they arrive. So I'd like to welcome you to today's session. My name is Jennifer. I'm with CTRS Solutions. We're a market intelligence firm here in Canada, and we work together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, and we're invited to complete this study looking at the Agritech market in Canada. And today's session is to share our findings. And I led this study on behalf of CTRS with my colleague Aaron Cruikshank, who's also on the call. And I also collaborated very closely with some of the ambassador's staff. And so just briefly would like to say thank you to Felipe and Sergio in particular for a wonderful working relationship. And I don't think we could have brought this study to life without the both of you. So thank you very much. So before we're going to share the findings of this study with you today, but before we get going, I wanted to take a moment and just orient you to how the session is structured. So what we're going to be doing together is we'll hear some official remarks, and then I'll walk you through the findings of the study. And then we're going to hear from a Canadian stakeholder who is an Agritech entrepreneur himself. And then we will also hear from Embrapa, and we will hear from Brazil's agricultural attaché. And we will do all of that in about 40 to 45 minutes. And then we will leave time at the end for questions. So attendees who are on the call, you'll have an opportunity to submit questions via the chat function, and then we will address those questions at the end of the call. Your mics will be muted throughout, so you will not have a chance to participate by voice, but we do welcome you to submit your questions at any time to staff, and we'll get those in the queue for answering near the end of the call. And I want to thank you also for joining us today. We do also have translation staff on hand. So if you are a Portuguese speaker and you'd like to submit your questions in Portuguese, we welcome you to do so. So the one other piece of today's session is that this is being recorded. And so we just wanted to let you know the recording has already begun, and a recording will be made available at the end of the session via I believe it's the embassy's YouTube channel. It's in the invitation that will be available online if you'd like to share this. So now I'd like to move on to some remarks. So I'd like to invite Your Excellency Ambassador Pedro Borio to make some welcoming remarks on behalf of the study.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Boa tarde a todos. Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon to all of you that are participating now, or those that will perhaps have the patience to watch this later on. I'll try to keep this as little official as possible, but first of all, a very big thank you is necessary to you all from CTRS, Jennifer, Aaron, Mike, and all the others that participated, to my team already mentioned here, Felipe and Sergio in particular, who worked tirelessly for this, but it goes way beyond that. I think it's useful for the best understanding of the potential of this study, what we want to do with it, is to point out a couple of points. One of them is the following. Both Canada in Brazil and Brazil in Canada are very big. I mean, we are as present in the agribusiness segment in Canada as Canada is growingly present in Brazil. Both countries also are very big in science and technology. We are commemorating this year 10 years of our science and technology agreement, a very positive one that has been focusing in specific fields in great depth. And investments go without saying. A lot of people do not even know that Brazil actually has a huge amount of money invested in Canada, like Canada has in Brazil. So it's a very interesting traditional relationship. We commemorate this year 80 years of the opening of the embassy in Ottawa, and more than 150 years that Canada opened an office in a commercial office in Rio. So, but as you know, the agribusiness, which is more and more also an industrial business, not only the traditional agriculture that many of us were raised understanding, is in a process of enormous and fast change and evolution. And we realized that we could greatly benefit from having a much deeper study of the sort of a roadmap of what is being done in Canada, who is who in Canada, who is competent in what in Canada. And this stems from our notion that there is a vast probability that for each institution or niche in Canada, we might find one or even more correspondents in Brazil. Embrapa is a worldwide known name in terms of excellence, of research, of results. We're not just talking theory here. Ministry of Agriculture of Brazil is a ministry of highly sophisticated capacity and tremendous international presence. So what we wanted to do is to prepare a document that is not a finished work. It might be part of an evolving effort. It might be reviewed or enriched later on, but it certainly is, and I'm very confident I can say that, a tremendous starting point. So I would like to invite everybody to interact with us here and in Brazil, to bring questions to us. The only bad question I always repeat is the one that is not presented. And not only to the embassy here in Ottawa, but also to our 3 very active consulates in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, each one of them very familiar with their specific realities, with the existing links between institutions from Canada and from Brazil for research, for economic cooperation. But we want to go deeper. We want to go much deeper and much better. And we believe it's possible. We believe the relationship could grow exponentially. And I believe this perception is shared more and more with a number of players in the Canadian side. So it's a big thank you, a big invitation for all the participants to interact with us. And a special word of thanks to Cibele Silva, Cleidson from Embrapa, Paulo Márcio, who is our agricultural attaché here in Ottawa, detached from the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil. And all of them, I'm sure, will be open to being contacted specifically and to further this effort that we are starting today. So again, bravo to you. I think the results speak by themselves. The full text is open to the public. So I strongly urge all the participants to go to the document and look it up and read it attentively, because there are a large number of jewels, in my opinion, that we can try to build upon together. So thank you very much, and a very good webinar for all of you. And again, especially Jennifer, thank you And when saluting you, I salute all your colleagues from the consultants.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I really appreciate your remarks. And we have one more speaker from the Ministry of Agriculture. I would like to welcome Sibel to join us to share some remarks from the ministry. And I will apologize in advance, my Portuguese did not improve with this project. So if I get your names wrong, please correct me and I will do my best. And yeah, thank you, Sibel. I'd like to turn the floor to you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much, you all, for inviting us for this meeting. And good afternoon to you all. Thank you, Márcio Cândido, for helping us to organize this meeting, our attaché in Canada. And since we work in an area dedicated to innovation, it's a pleasure to participate in this study launch. And our appreciation goes to all of you, to the Brazilian Embassy in Canada, to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs for making it possible to have this important study published. And as Secretary Fernando always mentioned to us, we foster and accompany the development of new startups for agribusiness and of new innovation environments in Brazil. We are here committed to integrating even more hubs, capitalist ventures, corporate venture initiatives, investors in general, companies from all sizes, and all connected to one finality: innovation in agribusiness. And in this scenario, the startups dedicated to agriculture, livestock, and food supply play a really central role. We need to continue to build bridges between all of those involved, all of those players, and the government can be a mediator in this. This is what we're doing in this study and in the study related that Brazilians always do, that Cleidson will present. And as you know, together with Embrapa, we launched the study Radar Agritech Brazil, where we mapped more than 1,500 age techs, the startups for the agribusiness. In 1 year, as you will see, the Brazilian agribusiness market saw the number of age techs grow 40%. And this is revealing a skyrocketing innovation ecosystem focused on agribusiness. And the vast majority of Brazilian age techs were founded in the state of São Paulo, for instance. But the Northeast region, for example, saw its age tech innovation ecosystem almost double in size. We are growing. And in addition, we map the more than 20 hubs for age tech innovation. And furthermore, we need to optimize the process and the operational costs to achieve more efficiency in a sustainable way, using all those environments for innovation in agribusiness. Because as we know, we are in the year of COP, an ever growing demand for food follows an ever increasing world population. Thus, the agricultural sector's digitalization is not only strategic, but it's urgent from a social and environmental perspective. And the age techs, the startups in agribusiness can help this. For instance, since we always talk about the mitigation and the impact of agriculture on the environment, greenhouse gas emissions, the forest conservation, soil management, among others. And what we see is the need for a greener agriculture becomes really clear. Consequently, on the one hand, we have the need for this greener agriculture. And on the other hand, we need an agriculture that can really survive and feed the planet under this condition. And this shows us how much we need technology in agriculture that will come from the innovation ecosystems, from the age techs mainly. And having similar diagnoses about innovation ecosystems in other countries is essential for making us grow together and concentrate efforts in one direction. The study that you launch here, encompassing the age techs in Canada, is one step towards integrating and approximating our country's innovation ecosystems for agribusiness. And here at the Ministry of Agriculture, we make ourselves available to you in a strong partnership for exchanging knowledge, for approximating, for exchange the innovation between our innovation ecosystems for agribusiness. Then congratulations for the study. Let's further this together. Thank you very much for inviting us. And please, we are available for you to continue this partnership with you here at the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sibel. A lot of your comments have set up the study quite beautifully, so I look forward to sharing the findings, which is what we're going to move on to next. I will encourage everyone to, if you are on the call and you would like to read the study, it is publicly available. And I do encourage you to do that, not because of the months of labor we put into it, but because we only have 20 minutes to review these findings, and you're really only going to get a teaser. We're going to go through the most prominent, most important aspects of the findings, but the real details that you'll need to operationalize these findings in your day-to-day life are really contained within the study. So I do encourage you to go ahead and download that. The goal of this study was really to provide agritech companies in Brazil with sufficient market intelligence to make an informed decision about how to enter the Canadian marketplace with a made in Brazil product and service. In terms of the context of the study, we carried this out from May till sort of August of 2021. And in terms of our methodology, we used a combination of open source research and primary research being interviews. There were a number of Canadian experts, government officials, and entrepreneurs active in the agritech market that were consulted and engaged in this study. And some of them are even here today. I know they won't be able to identify themselves because they're in the attendee part of the webinar, but I would like to thank you for your contributions. So there is quite a lot of on-the-ground intelligence represented in these findings. I would also like to thank Mike Mannion. You're going to hear from Mike a little bit later on after myself. He was a senior advisor to us and subject matter expert on the project. Our findings wouldn't have been possible without Mike. He's a wealth of knowledge and information, and you're going to be able to see that from his presentation later. But we do want to thank and acknowledge Mike. He was critical to our process and methodology. I will also say that it is worth clarifying that the scope for this study was federal in nature. So we were looking really at Canada, Canadian laws, Canadian regulations. We did not engage the provinces directly. So Canada politically and geographically is split up into provinces and territories, which have additional jurisdiction when it comes to agriculture and agritech. We do tease that apart in the actual report, but for the context of these findings, it is important to know that anytime we're discussing a particular regulation or aspect of how the agritech market functions in Canada, we are speaking specifically to federal implications. So that, I think, sets some context for where we're going. In terms of the key findings, so to just orient you, if you're unfamiliar with Canada, we'll give you a couple of indicators about what this country is. So firstly, it's important in the context of agriculture to point out that Canada is massive. It is the second largest landmass in the world. The distances in Canada are perhaps incomprehensible depending on your particular geographical context of where you live and work. But for example, I live in Victoria, which is one of the westernmost cities in Canada, which is very close to Vancouver, which is that red star down on the bottom of the map. If you were to try to get into a car and drive 3/4 of the way across the country to Toronto, which is our largest city, it would take you 45 hours to make that drive. So this has logistics implications, for example, when you're trying to operate here. Most of our population in Canada is concentrated along the USA border. So you get a very dense concentration of people down in the south of the country, and the northern parts of the country are quite spread out when it comes to population. Our GDP in 2020 was worth about 1.87 trillion, and we typically have about 2% annual growth in GDP. In terms of agriculture, agriculture is a major economic driver in Canada. It's worth about $143 billion per year as a market. Since 2009, farm receipts have grown faster than GDP at an average of about 4.2% per year. In the last half century, when it comes to agriculture, we've seen trends that reflect what's going on in the international agriculture community with a massive consolidation of farms. So we have about 50% fewer farms now in Canada in the last 50 years, but they're now much, much larger. So 50% less farms that are now twice as large. We have another challenge when it comes to our agricultural market in the sense that cost of land in Canada is growing astronomically. We have some of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. As of this year, Vancouver and Toronto were ranked among the 5 least affordable cities to live in the whole world. It's driven up the cost of agricultural land significantly. We think that this is worth highlighting and understanding. And so just to give you a sense, British Columbia, where I live, which is the westernmost province, it can cost upwards of $200,000 per acre for prime agricultural land. Ontario, which is our most populous province, very important agricultural center, upwards of $32,000 per acre, and Quebec, another eastern powerhouse agriculture province in Canada, it can be up to $23,000 per acre for prime agricultural land. In terms of our global contributions, Canada is a significant contributor to the agricultural commodities and agri-food markets internationally, and most of our agricultural trade is happening with the USA, although we are engaging more and more with China, and our exports to China, the Chinese market, are growing at about 16% annually. So that's a bit of a snapshot of the agriculture market in Canada at a very, very high level. And to give you a sense of what we're doing commodity-wise, this is a shot of our top 10 commodities. In the report itself, we have, I believe it's in the neighborhood of 25 pages of content going in a lot of depth on each of these commodities, what's happening with them, the limitations, the opportunities for innovation. I definitely encourage you to check out that section of the report. But just to give you a sense, top commodities grown in Canada include corn, soybeans, chicken and poultry, vegetables, pork, seafood, dairy, wheat, and beef, which I know we share in common with Brazil. Collectively, these commodities are responsible for about $47 billion in annual revenue. And I should also say part of why you're seeing big jumps in annual revenue for commodities like dairy, for example, is that it's part of Canada's regulatory framework, which is we have a unique regulatory framework here that is driven by something called the supply management system. I won't go in depth about this here. I do encourage you to revisit this in the report, but we have the supply management system is run by what are called marketing boards, and they're established by federal and provincial law and act as a compulsory marketing agent for producers of specific commodities. And we have over 80 of these agricultural marketing boards in Canada, and they have unique powers to set prices. They sometimes are the sole buyer for a single commodity, and they also have the power to establish supply and production quotas, which can serve as a limit to new entrants into the market. So again, we're not going to cover that in depth, but it is an important flag to understanding the Canadian agricultural context, and we do invite you to visit that in the report. In terms of our competitive advantages here in Canada, we do have, as previously mentioned, significant arable land and access to freshwater resources. We also have excellent access to international markets, especially Asia via Vancouver and Prince Rupert. We have 2 very high-functioning, high-volume ports here on the West Coast and a number of international airports. We have an excellent network of research institutes and post-secondary capacity. And we also have an excellent global reputation as being a country that sends out safe, healthy, high-quality agricultural products. And interestingly, we found some research indicating that farmers are one of the most trusted professional groups in the country. So moving on, and now we are going to look more specifically at our innovation and technology capacity. And for the purposes of this particular study, we aligned our definitions of agricultural innovation and technology with Embrapa's framework. So we did look at the widest possible spectrum of what agricultural innovation is, and we defined it for the purpose of the study as new methods, processes, customs, or devices used to improve agricultural production, profits, efficiency, or enhance sustainability. So just to ground us in terms of what we considered when we were talking about agricultural innovation. And then for agricultural technology, even more specifically, we define that as the development and application of technological solutions to challenges in agricultural innovation, in particular to make practices more efficient, productive, safe, or sustainable. When it comes to Canada's approach to agricultural innovation, we do have a semi-privatized, semi-federalized approach in terms of our investment activities. So that meaning that we have both private investors and government investors playing a very critical role in funding research, development, and commercialization efforts here. When it comes to indicators and sizing for the agritech market in Canada, what we discovered through this study is that the space is too nascent for us to have reliable aggregate level data to do market projections from. What we can say as a proxy is that from looking at investment reports, Canada's agritech startups raised just 3.4% of available funding dollars in 2018. This looked like $577 million of investment, or 49 deals, relative to the US, where agritech startups raised 48% of funding dollars and captured 39% of global deal flow. This is not unusual in terms of comparing Canada to America. America's market is 10 times the size of Canada. However, that does put us a little bit behind in the investment space. Despite all this, Ag Funder News still characterized Canada as being one of the strongest agritech markets in the world. So what that tells us, and what we can infer from that, is that we're sort of punching above our weight, so to speak, when it comes to our agricultural technology developments. Agricultural technology and agriculture innovation is a strength that Canada would like to develop. So our government in 2017 convened what they called the Economic Strategies Table, which they touted as a new model for collaboration between industry and government, focusing on Canadian economic strengths and turning them into global advantages. So there were several of these tables convened, but one of them was focused specifically on agri-food, and it was a government industry collaboration that has set some fairly ambitious targets for Canada to become a top global competitor in the agri-food sector, as well as a leader in digital and technology innovation when it comes to providing agri-food products to a growing global population, which, as Sibel said in her opening remarks, this is an urgent need. This goes beyond the practice of agriculture to the important work of feeding a global population. And so this initiative targeted for Canada to increase domestic sales to $140 billion annually and rise our import market to $85 billion, our export market to $85 billion by 2025. This would be a $20 billion improvement over what's happening relative to 2017. So these ambitious targets have trickled down into major policy and funding initiatives. So ag innovation has been targeted across multiple different federal portfolios and departments for investment. So the major players in Canada when it comes to fostering this level of innovation include Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and Global Affairs Canada. In combination with their provincial counterparts, there's been a multi-billion-dollar investment into ag innovation in Canada over the last few years and will continue through 2025. Some of this funding is already being deployed, but we saw continued investments through budget 2021. Some of the areas of interest that this funding targets, in particular when it comes to ag tech and ag innovation, include climate solutions, new crop varieties, working with livestock breeds, nutrient management practices, biotechnology, precision agriculture, and communication and information technologies. So this is areas where you see the government saying these are critically important to our ambitious targets, and we're going to fund them and we're going to put resources behind them. We did have an election in Canada 2 weeks ago, I believe, and it netted essentially the same composition of government as we already had. So I think you can expect for these policies to persist into the future. In terms of barriers, so we looked at, in this study, not just at what is happening in the market, what funding is available, where are we trying to go as a nation, but we also looked at what are the current barriers in Canada to ag innovation. And one of the biggest challenges we face here, and any business operating faces here, is that our regulatory environment is very fragmented, it's multi-jurisdictional, it's challenging to understand. So at present, we have 6 different government agencies that oversee the implementation of more than 19 laws, and each of those laws has reams and reams of implementation regulations that support them. So it's a complex environment. It is not straightforward to navigate. And as previously discussed, there are multiple levels of government involved in this space as well. Moving through this regulatory process as an entrepreneur or business does require the support of specialized consultants. It can take years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to move through this process, and it is recommended that should you try to operate in Canada, that you retain a someone with expertise in our agricultural regulation system to help you ensure compliance. And the part of this challenge is not just on the ground the operation of your businesses, please excuse me, but it's also impacting our standing in the world. So we are currently Canada ranked 14th in the world in OECD countries with respect to the regulatory burden in this country. And Bloomberg, who looks at innovation capacity annually in 2021, did rank Canada 21st on its annual innovation index. So we do have work to do here to increase our competitiveness when it comes to innovation, and this translates over to agricultural innovation. It is on the radar of government. It is a work in progress, but it is something we think the most important flag to consider when considering operating here. In terms of the strengths and opportunities for operating in Canada, this is really where we're going to review sort of where we see the most room for new entrants to this market. So when it comes to labor issues in agriculture, there's multiple points of entry where Canada is in need of solutions. So Canadian farmers are aging. By 2025, 25% of all farmers in Canada will be over the age of 65, and very few people are entering the sector. We also see a challenge around labor where Canadian citizens often don't want to work in the seasonal low-skilled labor roles that make up many of the current jobs in agriculture. We currently solve this problem in Canada by retaining temporary foreign workers from countries like Mexico, but we're still projecting 85,000 low-skilled vacancies in the industry and 120,000 overall vacancies in agriculture by 2020. So we have a labor supply issue that lends itself to needing solutions. These labor shortages are a major problem for producers. In 2018, some work was done to quantify the cost of these labor shortages and found that they're costing producers up to $1.5 billion in lost annual sales. So another challenge with labor in agriculture here is that it's not just in short supply, but it's very expensive. So a lot of operations, it can be up to 40% of costs to employ folks in the industry. So labor savings technologies, this is what is on the mind of Canadian farmers. This is a set of problems that is in need of solutions here in Canada. In addition to labor, there's also challenges around carbon emissions. So if you're thinking of what are the opportunities for entering this market, anything that will help reduce the carbon impact of agriculture in Canada is something that will want to be looked at. Currently, our emissions are responsible for, agricultural emissions are responsible for 10% of national emissions. So decarbonizing agricultural activities is very important. Lastly, in terms of some of the challenges in need of solutions here is consumer trends. So consumers have a great deal of power in this market, both domestically and abroad, and they want food products that support their well-being. They want to eat more plant-based food. They want to eat more sustainable food from happier plants and animals that were raised without pesticides and antibiotics. And they want all of that at lower price points. So there's huge opportunities and need for innovation at the intersection of these consumer trends. I will reiterate that we're flying through these findings relatively fast, and that is on purpose. We do want to get through this in a decent amount of time, but all of this is elaborated on in much more detail in the report. So now that you have a sense of what's happening in Canada and where the opportunity is, how do you operate here? And this is really where we learned a lot with our interviewees and our experts. And again, like I mentioned, some of them are on the call, and I just want to acknowledge, I saw Mike Mannion join us, we're going to turn the mic over to him shortly. Thank you for being with us, Mike. But here's the advice. We went across the country and we talked to government officials, active entrepreneurs, business owners, innovators, and we said, what do we need to pass on to these folks to operate well, to succeed in Canada? And so what they had to say to you is that it's very important to have boots on the ground in Canada. There are a few different ways to do that, but however you get here, there needs to be significant focus on relationship development. Whether you incorporate a subsidiary, develop channel partnerships, ultimately at the end of the day, you and or your staff need to come and visit, need to spend time here. It's still what we heard time and again from interviewees is that this is in some senses still a bit of we call it an old school market, and very much face-to-face, very much dependent on who you know and what relationships you have in place. Another thing that these interviewees mentioned is that all of the federal funding that we alluded to in the previous slides is they are funds that are available only to Canadian incorporated companies. And it's the same situation with all of our incubators and accelerators. So in the report, we detail, we go into the agricultural innovation ecosystem in Canada, and we do have a number of incubators and accelerators that innovators can participate in. But again, you do need to be located in Canada to access those resources. And the same with different forms of financing. These will all require Canadian incorporation. So Immigration Services Canada does have advisors that can assist with the process of establishing a subsidiary here in Canada. We are excited about and receptive to companies that wish to establish subsidiaries and operate here. Another important consideration here is on going back to that theme around relationship development. Interviewees really wanted to pass on that it's something that you'll need to plan for and have resources to support, and it probably will take a good amount of time. So be prepared to make multiple trips here, to spend potentially months or years getting to know the operators and producers and suppliers that you may want to work with. As we mentioned, the regulatory landscape is quite fractured here. So it is recommended that you retain the services of a specialized consultant that can help you navigate your path to ensure compliance. Even domestic companies use these services. There's not really a way to move forward in this market without it, which leads to another big consideration, which is to say that I think one of the takeaways that you could probably put together at this point is that entering this market, it will take time, it will take financial resources. So to have those two things in place and be prepared for that is probably one of the most important considerations when you're evaluating the opportunity to do business here. So that is a very high level summary of what you're going to find in the report. That will concludes the remarks that I have for you today. We are going to hear a little bit from Mike, who is going to offer you some of that on the ground insight into what it looks like to operate here. And then we are going to hear from Embrapa, and we'd like to take your questions as well. So if you've heard anything so far in in this summary that you'd like to know more about, please do pop your questions into the chat and we will do our best to get to them. And without further ado, Mike Mannion, I'd like to invite you to offer some context to what we just shared.
Okay, thanks, Jen. As always, you've covered far more topics than I can even think of. So well done there. Yeah, and we'll just go to the next slide. I guess I've spent the last 6 or 7 years working in a variety of accelerators, all on ag tech. So I've had a firsthand look at some of the problems and the opportunities for agriculture technology companies. I think the good news for entrepreneurs from other countries is that all of the barriers that are currently facing the Canadian ag tech entrepreneur is also facing the external entrepreneur. So there's, other than the fact that you have the disadvantage perhaps of travel, the barriers are similar to local entrepreneurs. So it should take heart from that. Yeah, so as I said, I've been involved in this for the last 6 or 7 years. One of my main criteria for being involved in accelerators is that over my career in the workforce, I have worked or owned some farming companies, and I've also had the pleasure of working for some of the largest farming companies, and a couple of the names that some of you may recognize, like ConAgra and Campbell's, are two international companies that I think are well known. When it comes to local companies, when we look at Canada Malting, Money's, Golden Eagle, these are large farming operations in their own right. I've had, and Agrisco is my own company. So I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of running farms in 6 of 10 Canadian provinces. So have sort of a pan-Canada approach and understanding of the agricultural market. So, well, and Jen has gone over these things. What we're looking at and what we're hearing an awful lot about in Canada today, especially because of COVID, we had supermarkets with bare shelves this past year, not because there wasn't enough food being produced to ultimately supply. The problem is the supply chain was interrupted, and our reliance on some food products coming across from other countries also is very painfully obvious. So there's a renewal around looking at food security and not getting into that situation where we're reliant on other countries. And so that brings a big opportunity for anyone that has a technology in the vertical farming space. If you can produce food on a small area and in large amounts, that's of interest. I think we've already heard that Jen has talked about farmers are aging. I think we are somewhere around 55 or 60, and we're not being replaced. So we have to have technology to operate these farms. The declines in net farm income over the past few years has been a concern. So we have to find ways to improve productivity and reduce cost. Again, areas of concern. And the other areas that Jen has gone over very well, the consumer trends, the alternates have all been driven. We're now looking at alternate meats and plant protein. And of course, the world population is growing, which we've talked about. So if you want to be a supplier in the Canadian ag tech scene, you have to, first of all, be able to supply fast and accessible support. If there is no way that a Canadian agricultural company is going to invest in a technology that requires someone to come from miles away to provide tech support or to provide on-farm support. So you have to have some way of either partnering with a local maintenance company or something to ensure that you can respond to problems quickly. And the same thing with replacement parts. When you sell a technology in Canada, that's one of the first questions farmers would ask you is, okay, if I need a part, where do I get it and how expensive is it? And unfortunately, in the agricultural group in Canada, is we don't tend to be multilingual. When you're dealing in Quebec, you'll have to deal in French, and when you deal in the rest of Canada, it will be primarily English. And if you want to validate your process, and it happens to be a biostimulant or a biofertilizer or something in the crop world or a crop variety, you will have to have field trials validated in Canada for uptake by Canadian farmers.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mike, for sharing these insights. I think it really helps to hear the realities on the ground from someone with as much experience as you. So you missed your introduction previously, but folks are oriented to who you are and what you do. So thank you very much for sharing all of that with us and everything you gave to the study. Really appreciated.
My pleasure, Jen. I actually learned, I think I learned more than, okay, but anyways, thanks for the opportunity. And again, I hope it benefits. And I am very much involved in the ag tech space in BC. So if there are any of your companies that are wanting to contact me and question me, by all means, I'm happy to chat.
Thank you. And Mike does mean that. He's a very generous guy. So thank you, Mike. We are going to, before questions, we are going to have two more speakers. I was remiss in mentioning we're also going to have remarks from Paulo, our agricultural attaché. But before Paulo, we'll hear from Clitzen Diaz, analyst of digital innovation at Embaixada. And so Clitzen, I'd like to welcome you to join us. And I do have your slides, so you can just give me verbal cues as you'd like your slides advanced. And I believe Liz will bring you up on the screen here.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Well, I will share my screen with you. I had a specific presentation, but okay. My name is Clitzen Diaz. I am working at Embrapa, that is the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. And first of all, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to present the Radar Agritech Brazil. This specific study is result of joint work by Embrapa, SP Ventures, a big investor from Brazil, and Homo Ludens. Please let me the permission to share my presentation with you. Then I can show other information about the radar.
Yeah, I think I apologize. We did have some slides from one of your colleagues, but Liz, are we able to give that permission over?
Okay, it's much better. Yes, okay.
Clitzen, I'm not sure in the webinar format that we can actually do that for you.
Oh.
I apologize. Are you able to use Fernando's slides?
Okay, no problem. I can, well, just tell with you the information, but to show the graphic, I think that is much better. But okay, in this sense, the Radar Agritech Brazil 2020 and 21 mapping of startups in the Brazilian agricultural sector, it identified investors and startups that develop technological activities related to the Brazilian agri-food chain, and identify their profile, area of operation, and geographic location. Well, our last version, we identified 1,120 25 startup in the agriculture sector. In the actual version, we identified 1,574 Agritechs, active Agritechs from Brazil. Well, regarding this sector in Brazil, worldwide, we have a competitive advantage, and we are biggest producer of soybeans, oranges, cattle, poultry, corn. Well, we are bigger in other kind of foods. So Brazil competes and operates in market worth $1.1 trillion, which are still lacking in innovation and need new technological solutions to continue helping to feed our planet. In this sense, the mission of Embrapa is provide research, development, and innovation solutions for the sustainability of agriculture and for the benefit of Brazilian society. Well, Embrapa is in Brazilian agriculture innovation ecosystems, and beside our traditional partners, most of them are universities. Currently, with the open innovation concept, we are making new partnerships with startups and investors to develop and offer new effective innovation for the population, for the society. Well, we would like to present a typical Brazilian farm gate. Why? Well, this farm gate will be very important to understand our methodology, because we divided our study into 3 parts or area of action. We identified about 200 before the farm gate architects, 657 inside the farm gate, and 718 after the farm. Before the farm, the most representative categories are like marketplace, credit exchange, insurance, carbon credit, and laboratory analysis, seedlings, and plant genomics. For example, the most representative. Well, after on the farm, the biggest areas are rural property management system, the other integrating platform for system solution and data. Other one is drones, machines, and equipments. Well, remote sensory and diagnostic and image monitoring is representative too. Content and education. This inside the farm gate. After the farm, we can see that innovative food and new food trends is very significant. Well, marketplaces, infrastructure, and logistics, only online grocery. Well, thinking the supply chain, this is very important too, or are also significant. Well, about the results, in these slides, maybe Jennifer, well, the slide then you share with us, there is someone, then we put a map of Brazil. Well, this slide shows us the distribution of startups by regions, and like Sibel said, southeast region of Brazil has the greatest concentration of agritech startups in Brazil. Southeast and South together have about 90% of the Brazilian agritech. The top national region are in Brazil are São Paulo, Paraná, Minas Gerais, Rio Grande do Sul, and Santa Catarina. We noticed that São Paulo is in first place in the ranking of cities. Why? The state of São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, a chief protagonist within this ecosystem. São Paulo's major agritech areas are separated by about 3 or 4 hours by car. There are 3 top universities that work with agricultural science and information technology. 3 of the main airports of Brazil are located in this region. Well, about the quantity of agritech, this biggest city, these 3 cities, São Paulo, Piracicaba, and Curitiba, have more than 400 agritechs. It's about 28% of the startup in the agriculture sector. São Paulo is the richest state of Brazil, but not just in terms of money, but it's the state with the best universities, a great number of innovation hubs, and science and technology institutes. Well, other result regarding investments in Brazilian agtechs, we found 78 investors among incubator, accelerators, and direct funding in the startups. Well, 223 Brazilian startups received investments via 300 plus events. Well, we can see that the vast majority of agtechs are involved in production and post-production. This found on our site. I invite you to visit raidagtechbrasil.com.br. We can see, well, our report there and so many information. And okay, thanks for this opportunity, and I'm here to try to answer for some doubts.
Thank you, Cleets, and thank you so much. And thank you for bearing with our situation around the slides. You did a marvelous job, and I hope I somewhat was able to keep up the slides with your remarks. But anyone who is interested in following up, I'm quite certain Cleetston would appreciate hearing from you. So I'll invite you to do so. I will note that it's about 2 minutes before the scheduled end of our webinar, but we're all available to continue. So we'll continue at this time. And we would also like to invite Paulo, our agricultural attaché, is going to have some remarks for us now at this time. Paulo, if you'd like to make your remarks, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, Jennifer. Can you hear me? Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. It's always tough to be the last one to speak because everything is being said already. We're running out of time, but I mean, I can't help to make some quick remarks. Well, as Ambassador Pedro just said, Brazil and Canada, we have a lot in common when it comes to agriculture. And one thing I'd like to note is that both countries have developed a culture of early adoption of technology. So our production is always getting more efficient, which means that we're taking less space to produce more, using less water, emitting less carbon, using less pesticides. And this culture creates a lot of opportunities for companies to develop new products and services that will help our farmers to do what they do best even better. The focus on precision agriculture, Internet of Things, and the use of big data, robots and drones makes agriculture even more fascinating and will attract a new generation of geek farmers that will completely reshape the business for good. So we're really glad to have this study, because that makes we hope that this makes a big difference, especially for small and medium companies, that can find room for make a difference. We hope that they can connect with people working on similar projects, create partnerships, make it simpler, faster, cheaper, and greener. We hope that this new technology will benefit not only the large commodity production farmers, but also the small producers that sometimes don't even have a reliable internet connection to get things done. So, and we had a lot of examples here that showing that this is being done already. The Financial Times just published yesterday a story about how the ag tax are helping Brazilian farmers to reduce their emissions by introducing affordable technologies, not only related to connectivity, but also novel products such as feed additives that reduce the methane emissions in cattle, and several other examples. So there's a whole new world of opportunities ahead, and for them to be fulfilled, we hope to see more cooperation between Brazilian and Canadian governments, and also between our research institutions and our ag tax. Just as Dr. Sibeli said, providing the support needed for the development of Brazilian ag tax is a priority for the Ministry of Agriculture. And getting to know this environment and the most important players is key. And this study just does just that. So we have to thank the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Embassy of Brazil in Ottawa, and CTRS for providing us with such a good quality information. And this study is just one more example of the strong partnership that the Ministries of Agriculture and Foreign Affairs have been able to build over the last years. And not only between the both ministries, but also with the representative entities, just like the CNA, which is the Brazilian Confederation of Agriculture, and the LCB, the Brazilian Co-ops Organization. We can't wait to see the developments of these projects. And I just want to make myself available to support the companies interested in developing business in Canada. Just like the ambassador just said, just keep in touch, use us here, contact us when you need, and when you don't need, when you have some ideas to share, just keep in touch with us. It's going to be always a pleasure to hear some fresh ideas and to help people achieving their dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paulo. And so we're now at the official end of the presentation, and I just want to thank everyone on the call, all attendees, everyone who had anything to do with the study. On behalf of CTRS, we were quite honored to do this work with all of our colleagues on this call today. And we want to thank you also for attending and coming to hear about these findings, and wish everyone prosperity and good business moving into the future, and in particular also good health in these times. So thank you very much for being with us, and I think we will close this call now. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I apologize. There was my colleagues are reminding me there was one question. We were going to do questions, and there was one question, and it actually, I can't answer it. So perhaps one of the folks from Team Brazil can help us with this, but the question was, how many Brazilian agritech companies are currently operating in Canada? Does anyone know the answer to this question? Do we have that data available? I welcome anyone who might know the answer on, this isn't data that we had on the Canadian government side of things. So I wonder, do we know, is that being tracked anywhere?
Well, okay, can continue.
No, yeah, I was just going to say that I don't have this answer. I know of one company that's operating in Brazil. I've been in contact with the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce, and they were speaking about this company that's just recently started operating here. But I can't even remember the name. But we can do a research on that and try to find this out.
Good. Perhaps I think we have note of which participant asked that question, so we can see if there's a way to get that information across at the conclusion of the webinar. Sibel, I saw your video flick on. Did you have something you want to contribute to that question?
No, I just believe that we need to keep in touch, to keep this communication channel open, because we are in contact daily with companies, with hub, with investors, and then we can establish this continuing partnership among us. Then this is just what I want to add here, because we need to make this process a long time relationship. We need to not finish it here now in this webinar, and then I invite all of us to continue in this conversation. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Sibel, and thank you also, Ambassador, for joining us today. I will, now that we did answer the question, I don't believe there are any further questions, and my apologies for skipping over that as promised, but I think that does conclude our session for today, and I wish you all well moving into the future, and remember that you can find this recording online in addition to the study within, hopefully as soon as we can get it up, as soon as we have it available. So good day to everyone. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.